The cake was chocolate, the frosting was white, and Natalie Reyes was 19 years old, standing in her kitchen at 6 in the evening, watching her little sister blow out 15 candles. She was wearing the yellow dress. Diane had asked her to wear it every birthday since she was 12. Natalie always said yes. At 9 p.m., Diane fell asleep on the couch. Natalie covered her with a blanket. She kissed her on the forehead. Then she went upstairs and she packed a bag, and she walked out of that house and never came back. Portland, Oregon reported her missing 48 hours later. Routine report, routine case, adult, no signs of struggle, no body, no crime scene. Just a yellow dress hanging in a closet, and a 15-year-old sister who spent the next 26 years thinking her sister was dead somewhere. 26 years. That's 9,490 days of not knowing. That's $60,000 spent on private investigators who all came back empty. That's DNA uploaded to every database that would take it, every single year, because she refused to stop. Here is what the police file said. Natalie Reyes, aged 19, last seen April 12, 1998. Voluntary disappearance, likely. Here is what nobody said for 26 years. She was alive the entire time, living 40 minutes from an airport with daily flights back home. She chose not to come back. And when a detective finally found her, a different name, a different state, a different life, she said 11 words that broke the case open and broke a sister's heart at the same time. This is the story of Natalie Reyes, the girl who disappeared, the woman who chose to stay disappeared, and the sister who kept looking for 26 years for a woman who already knew she was looking and said nothing. The Reyes family lived in a rented house on the east side of Portland, off Burnside Street. A 2-story, 3-bedroom, secondhand furniture, a small garden out back that Irene, the mother, tried to grow tomatoes in every summer without much luck. Carlos Reyes, the father, worked construction, union job, good money on paper. The problem was, the money rarely made it home intact. Carlos Reyes was a man who believed in order, his rules, his timing. When dinner was late, he reminded everyone of it. When the house was loud, he solved that too. When the kids stepped out of line, his line, he corrected them. He used his hands to do the correcting. Natalie was the oldest of 2 daughters. She was 19 in April of 1998. She worked part-time at a pharmacy near their home, stacking shelves, running the register when needed, staying late when asked because she needed every dollar she could save. Her coworkers described her as calm, reliable, a little guarded. She didn't talk about home. Her sister Diane was 4 years younger, 15 in April of 1998. She idolized Natalie, followed her everywhere as a kid, called her Nat the way only Diane ever did. Diane collected pressed flowers. She kept them between the pages of library books, not her own books, library books, which she'd return with flowers still inside. She figured someone would find them eventually and wonder who left them. She liked that idea. A stranger finding something beautiful she'd left behind. She was that kind of kid, the kind who thought about the person on the other end of things. Diane later said, "Natalie was the one who kept me sane. She'd come into my room at night when things got bad downstairs, and she'd read to me. She'd make me laugh. She was my whole entire world." It was Diane's birthday. She turned 15. Natalie had saved for weeks to make this one feel different. She'd made dinner, She'd cleaned the kitchen beforehand so Carlos would have nothing to complain about. Carlos was not home that evening. He was at a bar. When he'd be back, nobody knew. So for a few hours, the house breathed. Natalie and Diane ate cake. They watched television. Natalie let Diane pick the channel, which she never usually did. Around 9 p.m., Diane fell asleep on the couch. Natalie covered her with a blanket. Then Natalie went upstairs. She packed a bag. Not everything, just what she could carry. A change of clothes, her work savings, $840 in cash, her identification, her Social Security card. She came back downstairs. Diane was still asleep on the couch, one arm hanging off the edge, breathing slow. Natalie stood there for a long time. She has never said how long. In the interview with Owen, 26 years later, she pauses at this part. She doesn't fill the silence. Owen doesn't push it. What she does say is this: I memorized her face. I knew I wasn't coming back, so I memorized it. She did not wake her. She covered her with the blanket one more time. She straightened it at the edges the way Diane liked. Then she walked out the front door at 9:45 p.m. She did not look back. Carlos came home sometime after midnight. He noticed Natalie was gone. He did not call police that night. Irene noticed in the morning. She checked Natalie's room. Closet partly empty, bag missing. She told Carlos. Carlos's response, according to Diane, she'll come back when she's hungry. 2 days passed. No call, no note, no sign. On April 14th, Irene filed a missing persons report. Carlos did not go with her to the station. He stayed home. The detective assigned to the case, a man named Owen Grant, noted the following in his file. Subject is 19 years old, adult. Financial savings and personal ID removed from home suggest planned departure. No evidence of abduction, no signs of struggle. Father states no knowledge of reason for departure. Mother distraught, but no additional information provided. Sister, a minor, states no knowledge. Owen Grant flagged it as a likely voluntary disappearance. He was not wrong. He just didn't know the full story. Nobody did. Now you know where Natalie went. You know she left on her own. You know why, at least in part. But here's what I haven't told you yet. Diane, her little sister, spent the next 26 years of her life convinced that something terrible had happened to Natalie. Not that she'd left, that she'd been taken, that she'd been hurt, that she was lying in a ditch somewhere with nobody looking for her. 26 years. And the whole time, Natalie was alive, breathing, living 40 minutes from an airport that had daily direct flights to Portland. She didn't come home. She chose not to. And when you hear why, when you hear everything, you're going to have to decide for yourself who the real story is about. Stay with me. Most families search for a year, 2, some for 5. A very small number search for a decade. Diane searched for 26. In 1999, she turned 16. She started saving money from her part-time job at a grocery store. She was not saving for college. She was not saving for a car. She was saving for private investigators. The first one cost $3,000. He was a retired Portland police officer named Bernard Holt. He found nothing. He told Diane, "She doesn't want to be found." Diane paid him, thanked him, and went home and started saving for the next one. In 2004, she hired the second, $6,000. She was 21. She'd started working as a legal secretary. The second investigator traced Natalie's Social Security number to a pharmacy in Portland, the same pharmacy where Natalie worked before she disappeared. nothing after. A trail that ended in 1998 and picked up nowhere. In 2010, Carlos Reyes died of a heart attack. He was 62 years old. Diane did not grieve. She told her coworker, "A bad man died. That's all." What she thought, but didn't say, was, "Now Natalie can come home." Natalie did not come home. That same year, Diane uploaded her DNA to every ancestry database she could access. GED match, Ancestry, 23andMe. She did it every single year after that, without fail, without exception. She also registered Natalie with the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. She uploaded dental records. She posted on every cold case forum she could find. In 2012, the third private investigator called her. He said, "I'm sorry, I can't find a trace of her. Either she's living completely off-grid or she's deceased. I can't tell you which." Diane went home. She sat in her car in the parking lot for 45 minutes. Then she drove home and uploaded a new DNA sample. While Diane was searching, cold case researchers, volunteers who review old files, started picking apart Carlos Reyes's initial statement to police. Here's what Carlos told Detective Owen Grant in 1998. "I have no idea why Natalie would leave. We had a good family. She had no problems at home. Maybe she fell in with a bad crowd." A cold case researcher named Andrew Fletcher cross-referenced this with Diane's forum posts from 2015. Diane had begun sharing details of her home life. Not everything, but some things. She wrote, "My father was difficult. He had a temper. I won't say more." Andrew messaged Diane directly. He asked, "Did the police ever look at your father as a possible reason for Natalie leaving? Not as a suspect, but as a cause?" Diane's reply, "No. The police never asked about what happened inside our house. They asked where she might have gone, not why. Nobody had ever asked the right question." November 2024. Portland Cold Case Unit. A detective named Owen Grant, yes, the same Owen Grant who took the original report in 1998, had never fully let the Reyes case go. He'd retired in 2009. He came back as a consultant in 2022 to review cold cases with new technology. He pulled Natalie's file, 26 years old. He ran a familial DNA search using the Oregon State database, cross-referencing with civilian ancestry uploads. He got a hit, a close relative match, sister level, from a profile uploaded repeatedly between 2010 and 2024. The profile name on the ancestry account? Diane Reyes. The match name, the other side of the DNA connection, N. Miller. N. Miller. Owen ran the name. He ran every variation. He found a driver's license, Nevada. Name, Nicole Miller. Date of birth listed, April 1979. That would make her 45. Natalie Reyes was born April 1979. Owen Grant stared at the screen for a long time. Now, think about what Owen Grant is looking at right now. A DNA match, a name that is almost but not quite her real name. A birth year that lines up perfectly. A Nevada license with no history before it. No school records, no childhood medical records, no tax filings before 2001. As if Nicole Miller materialized out of nothing, fully formed, age 22, in Nevada. Owen has done this for 30 years. He knows what this is. But he also knows something else, something that most detectives don't think about until it's too late. If Natalie Reyes built this life deliberately, if she chose to disappear, then calling her is not a rescue. It's an intrusion. And she will know, the moment he says her name, that the wall she spent 26 years building has just developed a crack. Owen sat with that for a long time. Then he picked up the phone. He found a phone number linked to the Nevada address, a listed landline, rare in 2024. Owen later said, "Most people who disappear don't want to be found, but sometimes they keep one old habit, a landline, a P.O. box, something stable they trust." He called on a Tuesday morning, 3 rings, then, "Hello?" Owen said, "Am I speaking with Nicole Miller?" A pause, 3 full seconds, then, "Who's asking?" Owen identified himself, retired detective, Portland Cold Case Unit Consulting. Another pause, longer. He said, "I'm looking for a woman named Natalie Reyes. She went missing from Portland, Oregon in April 1998. A DNA database has connected your profile to hers. I need to ask, are you Natalie Reyes?" The pause this time lasted 11 seconds. Owen counted. Then the woman on the other end said, "How did she find me?" She. Not, "I don't know who that is." Not, "I think you have the wrong number." How did she find me? That was the confirmation. Nicole Miller was Natalie Reyes, and she knew her sister had been looking for her. Owen asked to speak with her further. She agreed, with conditions. She would not reveal her current address. She would not travel to Portland. If Owen tried to publish her location, she would deny everything. Owen agreed. He recorded the call with her consent. And Natalie Reyes, who now went by Nicole Miller, who had gone by that name for 23 years, told him everything. Carlos Reyes had been hitting his family since Natalie was 7 years old. She is specific about the year. 7. She remembers the first time clearly because it was the first time she thought, this is not how it is in other houses. He hit Irene when dinner was wrong. He hit Irene when she talked back. He hit Natalie when she cried too loud. He hit Diane when she was slow to do what she was told. He did not drink excessively. He was not erratic. He was methodical, controlled. He hit when he decided to hit, and then he stopped. And then he acted as if nothing had happened. That, Natalie says, was the worst part, not the hitting, the normalcy after. He'd hit me at 7 o'clock. By 8 o'clock, he'd be watching television, calling me to come sit with him, like it was nothing, like it didn't happen. And my mother would look at me and I'd know, don't say a word, don't ruin the peace. Irene Reyes enabled the abuse. Natalie does not use that word with venom. She says it clinically. My mother was a victim too, but she also chose Carlos's comfort over her daughter's safety. Those two things are both true. At 17, Natalie called the police once. A neighbor heard screaming. Natalie used a moment when Carlos stepped outside to call 911. Officers came. Carlos opened the door, calm and polite. He said Natalie was having an episode. Emotional teenager, nothing serious. Irene confirmed it. Natalie stood behind both of them and said nothing. The officers left. Carlos waited until they were gone. Then he turned to Natalie. She doesn't describe what happened next in detail. She says only, "After that, I knew I was on my own. Nobody was coming. If I wanted to survive, I had to build my own exit. Let that land for a moment. She was 17. She had called the only people with the power to help her. They stood in her doorway. They looked at her face. They left. The system looked directly at Natalie Reyes and walked away. So she decided to save herself, because nobody else was going to. For 2 years, she planned. Every dollar saved was a day closer to the door. Every shift at the pharmacy was research. She kept advocacy pamphlets for domestic violence survivors under her mattress, reading them in the dark after Carlos went to sleep. She learned what she needed to learn. She learned that the safest time to leave was when the house felt calm, when Carlos's guard was down, when nobody would notice for hours. She picked April 12th, Diane's birthday, because Carlos never came home for the kids' birthdays. It was the one night she could be sure he'd be gone until late. And she left. She boarded a Greyhound that same night. She did not look back at the house. She has not described the bus ride in detail. She says only, "I watched the city lights disappear, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 12 years. 3 states, 3 weeks, 1 women's shelter in Nevada that took her in without questions. There she met a woman, she won't give the name, who helped people disappear properly. New documents, new identity. The kind of rebuild that could survive a background check. In 2001, Nicole Miller was born, on paper. She built credit. She went to community college. She earned a degree in library science. She now runs the circulation desk at a county library in Nevada. She is, by every external measure, safe, stable, okay. She has been okay for 26 years. Owen asked, "Did you know your sister was looking for you?" Natalie was quiet for a moment. Then, "I found out in 2012. She had set up a Google alert for her own name, Natalie Reyes, out of habit. In 2012, Diane posted a detailed appeal on a cold case forum. She named their neighborhood. She named the pharmacy where Natalie had worked. She named the yellow dress. Natalie read it, read every word, including the part where Diane wrote, "I keep the dress she wore that night. I don't know why. I just can't get rid of it." Natalie read that, sitting at a desk in Nevada, in a life called Nicole. She read it, and she knew her sister had kept the dress, and she knew her sister had never stopped. Owen. And? Natalie. And I closed the browser, and I went to work the next morning. Owen. You didn't consider reaching out? Natalie. Carlos was still alive in 2012. If I reached out, he might find me. He would find me. He was the kind of man who would look. Owen. Carlos died in 2010. Long silence. Then Natalie said, "I didn't know that." Owen. You didn't know he was dead? Natalie. I stayed away from anything connected to that family, including news about them. I didn't search for Carlos. I didn't search for my mother. I didn't search for Diane. I couldn't. Every time I got close to that world, I felt 17 again, standing behind my parents while the police walked away. Your mother passed in 2018, dementia. Another silence, longer. I'm sorry about my mother, Natalie said finally. She was a victim too, and I know she died not knowing what happened to me, and I carry that. I carry it every day. But I couldn't be Natalie Reyes anymore. That person, that girl, she would have died in that house. I had to let her go so Nicole could live. Here is what you know now. Natalie survived. She built a life. She did what survivors do when institutions fail them and nobody comes. She saved herself. But here is what I need you to sit with before I tell you what comes next. In 2012, Natalie found out Diane was looking. She read Diane's forum post. She knew Diane had hired private investigators. She knew Diane had not given up. And she closed the browser and went to work. She had reasons, real ones, valid ones. But Diane didn't know that. Diane had no idea Natalie had found out she was looking. Diane went on for 12 more years believing Natalie might be dead. 12 more years. After Natalie already knew Diane was looking. Hold that thought. It matters for what comes next. November 19th, 2024, a Wednesday, 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time. Diane Reyes was 41 years old. She was at home in Portland, same city she'd lived in her entire life, unlike her sister. She was eating dinner alone when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't pick up. Then she did. Owen introduced himself. Retired Portland PD, cold case consulting. He said, "I'm calling about your sister, Natalie Reyes." Diane put down her fork. "What happened? Did you find her? Is she... "She's alive. She well. She left voluntarily in 1998. Diane didn't say anything for a long time. "Owen, she's been living under a different name. I've spoken with her. She does not wish for me to disclose her location. She does not want contact." Diane, what do you mean she doesn't want contact? That wasn't a question. Owen heard it as what it was. The sound of 26 years of searching colliding with the worst possible answer. What followed was a conversation Owen Grant has described as the hardest of his 30-year career. "Diane, I've been looking for 26 years. I hired 3 private investigators. I uploaded DNA every single year. I spent $60,000 of my own money." She stopped. Then, "She's been alive this whole time?" Owen, "Yes." Diane, "Where is she?" Owen, "I can't disclose that." Diane, "She's my sister." Owen, "She's an adult. She has a legal right to privacy. She asked me not to reveal her location. I gave her my word." Diane, "Did she know I was looking?" A pause. Owen, "She found out in 2012. The silence from Diane's end lasted 14 seconds. Owen counted those too. 14 seconds. Think about what is happening inside that silence. She just learned her sister has been alive for 26 years, and that her sister knew she was searching 12 years ago, and still said nothing. Then, she found out in 2012, and she still didn't come forward? Owen, "She had reasons. I believe her reasons." Diane, "What reasons?" Owen, "She mentioned your father." Diane was quiet again. Then, more quietly, "Carlos." Owen, "She described the abuse as severe. She felt she couldn't contact anyone who was still living with your father." Diane, "Carlos died in 2010. Owen, "She didn't know that. She was keeping distance from anything that could lead back to your family, including news about them." Another silence. Then Diane said something that stopped Owen cold. "I stayed in that house because I thought if I left, there'd be nobody there to make sure my mother was okay, and nobody there to wait for Natalie in case she came back. I gave up my 20s waiting for her in that house with Carlos, and she didn't know Carlos was dead, and she didn't know I was alone. I'm sorry. Can you give her a message?" "I'll try." Diane thought for a moment, then, "Tell her I love her. Tell her I understand why she left. Tell her I'm sorry Carlos hurt her. Tell her I stayed behind because I thought she might come home. Tell her I'm glad she's alive. I need her to know that, above everything else, I'm glad she's alive. And then ask her, I spent 26 years grieving a sister I thought was dead. Now I know she's alive, and I still can't reach her. Which grief is worse, the not knowing, or the knowing and still not being able to touch her? Diane still has the dress. She'd kept it in a box in her closet since 1998, one of the last things Natalie had touched. She'd looked at it during the years when she thought Natalie might be dead, and it felt like a relic, something to hold when there was nothing else. After Owen's call, she went to the box. She opened it. She held the dress for a long time. Then she put it back, because now the dress meant something different. Now the dress was the last thing between two sisters who were both alive and could not reach each other. That is a different kind of grief entirely. Owen passed along Diane's message. He read it word for word from his notes. He included Diane's final question: which grief is worse? Natalie was quiet for a long time after he finished. Then she said, Tell Diane I received the message. Tell her I'm grateful she's okay. Tell her Carlos can't hurt either of us anymore. Is that all? Tell her I know which grief is worse. Which one? The one you carry alone. Owen waited. He did not ask a follow-up question. He knew when a sentence was final. She thanked him. She hung up. Owen sat at his desk for a long time with the recording still running. 11 minutes of ambient silence before he remembered to turn it off. He wrote one line in his case notes that day: found, will not be returning. Most true crime stories have a villain. This one has two women who love each other, both of whom are right, both of whom are paying for it. There is no verdict coming. There is no arrest. There is no courtroom that handles what happened to the Reyes family. There is only what's left. And what's left, I need you to see clearly before this ends. Natalie Reyes was 7 years old the first time her father hit her. She was 17 when the police looked at her face and left. She was 19 when she walked out the door with $800 and memorized her sister's sleeping face because she knew it was the last time. She built a life. She survived. She became someone safe. You cannot hold that against her. Anyone who has survived something unsurvivable knows you do not get to choose the cost. You only get to choose whether you make it out. Natalie made it out. And Diane. Diane was also 7 years old the first time her father hit her. She was also failed by every adult. She was also a victim of Carlos Reyes. She stayed. She waited. She built her entire adult life into a lighthouse, pointed in one direction, burning for one reason, for 26 years. And the ship she was signaling had already found its own harbor. Natalie's argument, in her own words, Natalie Reyes was a girl who was being destroyed. I had to let her be destroyed so Nicole Miller could survive. If I go back to being Natalie Reyes, even just in relationship, even just by one phone call, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where Nicole ends and Natalie starts. And I worked too hard to find out. Diane's argument, in her own words, I stayed because of her. I waited because of her. I never stopped because I believed she was out there suffering somewhere and needed me to keep looking. And she was alive. She was reading books in a library in Nevada. She was fine, and I didn't know. And she knew I was looking in 2012, and she still didn't call. That's 12 years of my life she could have given back to me with one phone call. I want you to sit with something uncomfortable. Both of them are completely right, and that is the most unbearable thing about this story. There is no one to blame who is still alive. Carlos is dead. The officers who walked away are retired somewhere. The systems that failed Natalie at 17 have not changed enough to matter. What's left is two women who love each other, separated by 26 years of silence, asking the same questions about each other through the same retired detective, because they don't know how to close the distance themselves. When does surviving become something you owe only to yourself? And when does it become something you owe to the person who stayed behind because of you? Finding Natalie, was that a rescue? Or was it a violation of the only safe life she had ever built? Diane called it both, on the same day, in the same breath. She wasn't wrong either time. As of the time this story was told, Natalie Reyes, Nicole Miller, remains in Nevada. She has not reached out to Diane. Owen Grant keeps in light contact with both women, at their consent, as an informal bridge. He says Natalie has asked questions about Diane. What does she do for work? Is she okay? Does she have people around her? He says Diane has asked about Natalie too. The same questions, in the same order. Two women asking the same questions about each other, through the same detective, because they cannot ask each other directly. Owen has stopped predicting whether they'll speak. He tried that in the early weeks. He doesn't anymore. He said in his final note on the case, "I've closed the file, but I don't think either of them has." Subscribe for more.